at the time, let's say in the US, I was earning 70-ish K. I ended up earning 28K when I got here, so a massive hit and a massive kind of compromise. But I don't know, I just had this vision that I was going to graft for a few years and then it would pay off. And it was hard, but I wouldn't have it any other way, I think.
Diana Pego's path has been shaped by courage, resilience, and a true passion for people and property. From navigating the challenges of new countries as a young adult, life-changing incidents, motherhood whilst building a career in a male-dominated industry, to a defining shift in her career path. In this episode, Diana shares the pivotal moments that have defined her life and career, from overcoming imposter syndrome to the lessons learned from her most challenging setbacks. Diana, hi, welcome to Places She Shapes at Abbey Road Studios. Thanks so much for being here. You've had a really interesting and unusual life so far. A Brazilian upbringing, a civil engineering degree in the US, and now a career in the UK design and build industry. Can you tell me a bit about your early life in Brazil?
Yeah, random background, right? Thanks so much for having me, by the way. So, yeah, I like saying that, my childhood was Brazilian. So, running around the streets and playing on the beach and all of that good jazz and a lovely childhood. And then, yeah, I did a lot of, I guess, my adulthood and adult growing up out of, my home and in the US and in the UK. I have really fond memories. Brazilian culture is very family oriented. So, I grew up around lots of cousins and family and yeah, very good memories.
So why did you decide to leave Brazil and go to the US for university?
So in that, I've always been interested in music. And although Brazil has got a very, rich genres and lots to do in music, I was very influenced by, the good old Britney Spears and Beyonce and, the good American culture, I guess. And so I used to, listen to music and not really understand, and it used to really piss me off. So I think that's kind of how my interest in leaving got started. And then once I went to study in the US for I did 1 year of high school. I then thought, yeah, Brazil's too small for what I want to do in my dreams. So that's kind of how I got interested in leaving.
So how old were you when you left Brazil?
I was 16 when I convinced my parents to leave the house and go live with some random family in the US. And then I went to uni at 18.
Wow, that's really young.
It is really young. Yeah, it is. And I think at the time they were really hesitant to let me go because, you can imagine. So Brazil in general is a very traditional culture, right? So, my mom never worked. And, my dad and my mom had this agreement that, my mom would raise us and, I have two sisters, two younger sisters. And my dad would be the kind of breadwinner. And so when I brought it up to them that I wanted to leave the house, it was chaos. And they said, absolutely not. And I think it took me about a year to convince my dad. And actually, my nan, who I really have a tattoo for, she helped me convince him to say, look, she wants to go. Why would you not let her, And that's kind of how it got started. But it was really, really difficult to convince them that it was going to be a good idea. And then once that was done and I had a good experience, then my sisters had it really easy, right? Because my two other sisters went to the US as well and they had a great experience. It was all easy.
The curse of being the oldest daughter is you have to pave the way.
Honestly, they have no idea how many tears I shed. So yeah. But yeah, it was really good. But as you said, I was very young. And looking back now, I can see how that started to shape me, and the kind of challenges of growing up. Obviously I did the growing up in Brazil, the childhood bit, but then growing up as an adult, from 16 to 20-ish is also the other bit of growing up that you don't really consider when you're going through it.
Mm. So after the high school experience, 16, 17, did you come back to Brazil before you went to university?
I did. So I said a year, but I ended up spending 8 months there because my nan got sick. So the same nan that helped me kind of go to the US, she ended up getting really, really ill. She had a brain tumor. So I ended up coming back early. So I ended up finishing school in Brazil and then graduating and then leaving to the US. So, I had probably 8 months in the US, come back for a year, and then go back again for uni.
Okay. And how did you decide what you wanted to do at university?
Good question. So I think I told you this before. I like calling myself a failed singer because I'm convinced that if I stayed in Brazil, I would have pursued some type of music career because I just love music. But my dad was always really interested in construction, so construction was always kind of part of who we were. So he would design a house, build it, and obviously in Brazil everything's new, right? It's not like here in the UK, for example. So we would design it, build it, live in it for 2, 3 years, then get tired of it and move along. So I think when music wasn't really an option, and I did music for fun in school at a uni, then construction kind of felt like the obvious thing to do. So I think I picked civil engineering because, again, kind of the background of my family and being in it, but also I just thought that it would be a good career to. It would get me good jobs, I guess, in the future. And again, as I said, because my family was so traditional, for me having a career was, I was gonna have a career. I was not gonna be a stay-at-home mom with, depending on my husband. That was a no. So
Okay. So how did your parents feel about your decisions?
my dad loved it. And I think that was this, having a daughter engineer, tick. And I now again looking back, I feel that definitely helped, that shaped me. And I think it forced me to go that route because of him too. So he was pleased. My mom, I'd say the same. I think my mom is one of those moms that would have been happy if I was a singer or if I was anything. So yeah, they're kind of contrasting in that way.
Other than the singing, are there any other alternative careers that you would have been interested in?
Good question. I don't think so. Maybe architecture, which I know is kind of still the same, but I love like buildings and um, beautiful design. So maybe something like that, or interior design, maybe.
So can you tell me about your move from the US to the UK?
Yeah. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I got really tired of Americans, and I felt like uh, am I allowed to say this? The um the premise of an American dream, that you worked all year and then you had a 5-day holiday for the year or 10-day holiday for the year, which is bonkers to me. And I was definitely in that. So I graduated with a really good job. I used to live in Oregon and studied in Oregon, and I had this amazing kind of career set for me. And then I came to study in the UK for 3 months because, as part of the kind of US curriculum, you do a lot of the backcourt classes, which is politics and music and yoga and things like that. So I had those to take, and I could do it anywhere. So I decided to come to England. And I think meeting, I guess, seeing the British culture and also European culture felt way more aligned with me than the American culture. So, once I had a kind of peek at that, I was like, I'm done. So, yeah, moving here was definitely a big task. So I decided, when I came here, great, loved it. Went back to the US to work, save some money, and then I decided to just quit and then live in Brazil for a bit until my visa got approved. And at the time, I don't know how it is now, but at the time, they had this like quota per year that they'd only approve a certain amount of applicants and then deny everything else, no matter what. So I got denied 3 times. And at the time, and this sounds meh, but it was really difficult because being told no 3 times when you're like, I've just put my life on hold for this, um, was a big deal. So I was at this kind of crossroads of like, do I stay in Brazil and I maybe pursue music? Or do I, carry on with this? And when it got approved the third time, no, I was really, really ready for it. And I, at the time, let's say in the US, I was earning 70-ish K. I ended up earning 28K when I got here, so a massive hit and a massive kind of compromise. But I don't know, I just had this vision that, I was gonna graft for a few years and then it would pay off. And thankfully, it was hard, but I wouldn't have it any other way, I think.
Mhm. You didn't always envisage yourself in the role that you're in today. Can you share how your path led to where you are today?
Yeah, that's a big question. So again, kind of the background of civil engineering and construction. When I came here, I had no idea what DMB was, right? I don't know how it is now, obviously, because I've been out of the US for years, but DMB was a new animal to us because, in the US you do general contracting and then you have the architects and, consultants and stuff like that. So when I signed up and got this job, the really low paying job, they said, you're going to be a project manager in DMB,
Design and build.
design and build. Yeah. I was like, great. I would take anything. Great. So I kind of fell in it, not knowing what I was in for. I felt I was overqualified in a way. I felt like the job was easier than I expected because obviously I come from years of, measuring trusses and really boring stuff that's during the end. And I'm not trying to diss team engineers, by the way. So I started in that and then got really interested in the commercial aspect. And because I was in this project management company, I got exposed to a lot of D&B companies, design and build companies, and got to see the really, really cool ones, which I, ended up in one of them, I think, and the really, really bad ones. And when I got onto this next company, I put my hand up to be a commercial, kind of pre-construction manager, which they said yes to. I really enjoyed those years, and I ended up doing it for about 5 years. And it was really fun. I think it gave me a really good kind of understanding of the market. And again, it literally exposed me to kind of everyone. And now being a project director, I feel like that experience, obviously coupled with everything else, it gave me a good understanding of the whole thing. And I feel like I'm able to, when I talk to clients, I'm able to speak, give them good advice because of that.
How do you think your determination and personal growth have played into your journey?
I think it definitely helped through, the kind of ups and downs of my career. I think I had a couple of instances where I was like, why am I here? And have I made the right decision? One of them was when I got that first job, again, the low paying job. I ended up getting, it was 3 months in. I was really excited to be here. Great. And we had Secret Santa. And I remember opening it and I had this sexy piece of underwear in front of me, in front of all my colleagues, being completely new and, all of that. So I felt, honestly, that was a point in my career that I said, what am I doing here? How do I deal with this? Obviously, after that situation, I ended up going to the toilet and just crying and crying and crying and really thinking, oh, what am I doing? But then I think, years on, I feel really resilient. I think I went through that and I started, I guess it's around the phase as well that I matured. I kind of stopped looking at things with the pink colored glasses, and kind of understand that people might be a certain way in front of you, but that's not really it necessarily. So I feel like that experience helped shape me into just a more realist person as opposed to, the bubbly Diana that I think I used to be. And I think that resilience helped me throughout because, as you know, being a woman in construction is not easy. You get undermined all the time and you get told or try to be told what to do all the time. And I think it takes you really believing in yourself to get through those moments, that you're like, you kind of, depending where you're going, I think you start believing it a little bit, so you need to kind of stop yourself and be like, no, I can do this. And, F off.
Can you give me some examples of when you've been undermined?
Um, yeah, I think it's hard to think of a specific example right now, but I think, if I tell you about my career a little bit, the second company, the cool GMB company that I ended up working for, I think it was in a way quite a sexist environment where you had a lot of, I'm sorry, middle-aged men kind of running it. I think women in general are just undermined. And I feel like, decisions day to day that I try to kind of implement or try to do something different, I would be told, no, kind of not explicitly, but I would be told to shut up and, just do my job and things like that. And it's really hard when you're trying to obviously, go up in your career. And I really felt that at least that, and it's one of the reasons I left. It was an environment that I was kind of being taught that you have to be this way to succeed or you'll be no good. And so yeah, I feel like those moments were horrible because I did feel undermined, but then again it kind of helped me with the resilience I think that I built.
Did you ever think about doing something different?
Sometimes, yeah, if I'm completely honest, I think construction is just hard and stressful, but I think there's this kind of underlying passion for building and construction. I think we we end up shaping the world in a way, and with what we're building. Obviously, I'm in design and build, and it's mainly office space, but it's still I think it's really sometimes, especially when there are kind of exciting clients and exciting stories behind these businesses, you can feel that you're part of this like special thing, even in your own little way. So yeah, there's definitely parts of it that really keep me captivated. But yeah, I hope I'm not the only one that thinks, oh, when it's really stressful, am I doing the right thing? Especially so I'm a mom now, as you know, and that's another layer of like being really real about how do you spend your time, and what do you want to prioritize. It's a day-to-day battle. So in those days when I'm stressing and trying to prioritize time, I think it's I do wonder, am I in the right career? But I love it still.
How has your application to your role and the way that you go about your working life changed since you've become a mum?
I think it's made me realize that it's okay to let people down. And it's a big lesson that I've learned very recently, actually. And I was speaking about this earlier. I think once before you have a child, and you obviously know this very well too, they have a little boy, you can dedicate your time to lots of things because you have the time, right? And you selfishly pick what you want. But then once your child is thrown in it and they are the massive priority, then I think you're forced to kind of understand, okay, that's that, and what else do I have time for? And then in that also then leaving time for yourself. And I think once I realized that, I feel way more kind of empowered in my role because I know that I do my best when I'm working. And when I'm not working, then I'm still, I try to be the best mom that I can. But I think before I realized that, when I came back from maternity leave, I was always in this like overwhelming state of being of like, oh my God, I can't possibly do all of this. And then realize actually, I've got 24 hours in the day. I'm sleeping this much. Sometimes my daughter, you kind of end up prioritizing. I think again, that when you do realize truly that for yourself, I think that's a really powerful thing.
How was it coming back after maternity leave?
It was really stressful. I think, or I thought I was ready for it. I took a year off, which I know is a lot of time for some people too. And, I was at the point where I wanted my daughter to kind of interact with other children. So I was happy with that, leaving her in nursery. And I thought that I needed my brain to work again because after a year of like listening to nursery rhymes and going to like baby clubs, I was like, right, I am ready for this. But again, I got thrown into this, having to prioritize other stuff and being told to prioritize, obviously the career. So I think the 2, 3, probably 4 first weeks of coming back were really difficult for me because I thought I was ready. And then I was hit with this massive, wave of emotions of like, how do you possibly do this? And then I think once the hormones calmed down and, it was easier to leave her in nursery, she wasn't crying as much anymore. And then again, I started learning that, well, you have to prioritize. So what are you going to let down? Then it started being easier.
Would it have been a different story had you been going back into any other industry, do you think? Do you think that that experience was specific to construction and property and design and build, or would it have been the same in any role that you had?
I think, you know, I think it would have been the same any role that you're coming back to, right? That's my view. You have again your baby that you want to spend time with and you want to look after. But then you're also a career person, a career mom or a career woman. And so whatever you're doing, you have to also prioritize that if you choose to come back. So yeah, I think it's the juggling act that we all kind of go through, right? That and finding your own way of navigating that.
Looking back, do you think you would have believed you'd be here leading a team, overcoming the challenges you faced?
Definitely not. Definitely not. Now I'm in a sales role and I never in a million years thought I was going to be in sales. I always used to say I hate salespeople. Who doesn't hate salespeople? But I think I somehow, I'm going to speak for a lot of us. I think, again, I learned that you can be yourself and you can be successful. And that's why when you ask me, do you think you'd be here? I probably have said absolutely not because I never wanted to be a salesperson. But then my role, I say now, is, an advisory role. I'll obviously lead a team, which is really exciting, and I'm kind of at the forefront of it. And I think with the sales comes making decisions and advising people and, inspiring hopefully people to like do things not your way, but kind of having the vision that you have. And I think that, again, that's quite a powerful, awesome position to be in.
So, what are the challenges and the obstacles when it comes to leading a team for you?
So again, kind of going back to the time, I think for me, that's the most challenging thing when everyone wants a piece of you. And by that, I obviously mean time, right? Your team wants time with you because of the questions and stuff, and your clients want time with you, of course. And you literally get pulled in all these different directions. And I think for me, that's the most challenging thing because I want to spend time with everyone, but you have to, I'm constantly letting people down in obviously in small ways, but I have to do that or else I can't, cope with everything. So yeah, I think I love managing the team. I love the challenges of, creating this vision around a project and then delivering to the client, etc. But I think yeah, the most challenging thing for me would be just the time priority, and knowing that as sometimes everything's a priority and how do you navigate that.
Mm. How do you?
I think I let people down gently. I Day to day, I think your absolute priority. Sometimes you have deadlines, right? And sometimes you have that phone call that you have to make. Sometimes you have to sit down and focus on something because you're strategizing for 2 hours. So I've become kind of like a schedule freak, and I will put out in different colors all the things that I absolutely have to do. And obviously knowing what time I have to get home, which is another thing that I've had to learn is if I have to leave at 4:30 to pick up my daughter one day, I put that in my diary, and I think making time for those things that you have to do, then I personally am able to navigate those day to day, really. If someone asks for half an hour with you and you're not able to do that, then I'm sorry, so be it, because it wasn't an absolute priority that day.
Yeah. So, if you could pinpoint one decision that has changed the trajectory of your career, what would it be?
I think coming into sales, I think it was an unexpected moment, that I decided to plunge myself into it. It was also a time where COVID had just happened and there was a lot of uncertainty around, the whole world was kind of panicking on what's next. And I just, I think I've always been an intuitive person. I just felt like where I wasn't right. And the career that I was doing, pre-construction just was small for what I wanted to do. I felt frustrated by the fact that I couldn't really influence the team and decisions. So I felt it was the right thing to do. It completely changed the trajectory, I think, of my career. Because I think now that, not that I've done it, but I'm doing it, I think it opens up opportunities to other things, that I would have never thought about doing because I have had exposure to leadership and, all these cool things that it kind of pushes you into doing.
What set you, other than this, what I'm doing isn't quite big enough, what set you on that sales path as opposed to something else?
So I think I started considering it when I was at that design and build company. For me, there were two roles that I could have next. It would have been head of kind of pre-construction and run the team and kind of do that, or sales. And so at that point, I I think I would have gone for either, but the sales aspect just sounded more exciting. And I think I was at that point where I wanted to try it. And if it didn't work, then I could always go back to pre-construction.
And did you change companies to make that happen?
I did.
Was there a reason for
I
that?
did. Yes. So again, I think I mentioned that I felt the environment that I was in at that time was quite sexist and it really bothered me. Um, and I never saw it changing. I guess I didn't see signs that it was going to change. So I got approached at the time by different companies, but one in particular that I had heard really good things about, which I'm obviously in now. And yeah, I ended up meeting the managing director, who's, ended up being an amazing mentor for me. And I think, when you meet people that you feel are special and are going to have a good impact in your life, I feel like you always kind of know. And that's kind of the feeling that I think I was hoping for. I know it sounds really cheesy, but that's how I felt.
Quite a risky time to be changing sort of direction and company.
Yes, for sure. And I felt that at the time too. I kept second guessing myself all the time. But I think what made me or helped me make the decision was that I knew I could always go back to doing what I was doing. And that's kind of, I excused myself. It's like, well, if you fail, it's okay because you can always do pre construction again.
Mm.
But yeah, it felt really uncertain. I think I knew I wanted to be in a company that valued me and that saw potential, and I felt where I was, I didn't really necessarily feel like that. So
There's so few female project directors in design and build and leading design and build companies. Why is that, and how can we change it?
um, it's a shame, isn't it? I think, well, we are biased, obviously, but I think women just bring a different perspective, and we think differently. And I think it's a lovely thing. So I think it's probably because of the obstacles, I think getting to kind of a managerial position or, a leadership position as a woman in the industry is not easy because I think you come across, bad mentors, bad culture, and I think I can see how it puts people off. It's not really a culture that, empowers women to succeed in a way. So I think you need to be really well set on what you want, or you need to have a really good kind of like a support system around you to be like, no, no, it's okay. You're gonna do this. And I think for me, for example, obviously, I have an amazing family, amazing friends that kind of, empowered me. But also Sean, my boss at the time, and I still my boss, really helped me with that. For whatever reason, he really believed in me. And I felt that. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think I really, I feel like I took off in the beginning as a project director because I had so many doubts, and I came into this company second guessing and imposter syndrome galore, every day. And then you kind of day to day, you kind of, with little project wins and things that you say that are taken on board and succeed, like little things like that make you feel like you can do it.
Could you tell me a bit about what makes Sean a good mentor?
She's gonna love this, isn't it? I think is making someone feel really supported. And again, I think that sounds like an easy phrase, but if someone puts out an idea to you, really listening to that, and helping them understand if it's a bad idea, happy days, but go through that with them and kind of the process. If it's a good idea, then celebrate that. And that's, when I say he is and who was a good mentor, is there was never anything that I brought up or, any crazy idea, and I have a lot of crazy ideas that I had that felt unvalued. It was always like, okay, let's work through that. It's not great, but I'll tell you why. So I think just feeling like you're heard, I think that's the main thing.
What is it about the company that you like, and what makes you feel valued to be there?
So I think culturally, it's a company that, I don't think there's any sexism, which is I thought was non-existent in the industry. It feels to me that everyone has a voice, you're never kind of being made to feel that you can't speak up or anything like that.
Mm.
And so I think because it's a cultural thing, I think I'm not the only one that feels that, a lot of people feel the same. And I think that's really strong because, you go through ups and downs, obviously, as companies do. And when you're in the down moment, that's when it really sticks out, right? If you don't have a strong culture of people like, it's like, I'm working until midnight tonight with you, let's get pizza and we'll make through this.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, then I think it's really tough. And maybe that's when companies, I think, crack. Long story short, I think that we just need to create more of an environment that women can thrive, and take out all of the BS around, companies being sexist and creating a culture that feels like women can be themselves.
How can we do that?
I think it's by first women standing up and calling out wrong actions, you know, and I think it's easier said than done, as you and I know. And I think it's I think if we had more women in leadership, that would help too. It's almost like catch-22, isn't it? In my opinion, it's like you need more women in leadership to make the young ones, the upcoming generation, feel like they can be there. And because there aren't enough, then there's like this kind of second guessing. But I think now what we can do is, in positions where we can speaking up and making sure that yeah, we create this environment for the next generation. I think it's obviously a really hard thing to do, but I think, doing things like this as well, is making sure that the women are heard and people acknowledging that it is definitely harder for women. I truly believe that.
Are there some females in your team, within your company, that you can see are on the right track to help us achieve this?
Yeah. I mean, I have friends in the industry that are just, amazing and superstars. And I know that they're gonna, help future generations, and are gonna help shape the industry as well. Young ones that are just really strong. And I actually think Gen Z or Gen Z are just, I think they are better placed than millennials are because they've seen a bit more of women in leadership positions. I think our generation, I, can't think of one, when I started. And now I can see way more, of women around me, which is amazing. So yeah, I think hopefully, our kids' generation, it will be hopefully way more of a 50-50 thing than it is now.
If you could go back in time, what advice would you give your younger version of yourself?
I think, as cheesy as it is, I would say just be yourself and know that by being yourself, you will also be able to succeed, which is something that I know I mentioned. I think it's something that I learned the hard way and by second guessing myself and, going through all the kind of, again, imposter syndrome that I went through. But I think when you truly realize that is a really powerful thing. And in whatever, and not just construction, but I think whatever industry you're in, if you really believe in what you're doing, believe that you are who you are and your personality is lovely the way it is, you are going to thrive, and not kind of listen to the noise of like you have to be so and so or have to be like this person to get there.
What kind of noise did you hear when you were, on your way up?
I think that I had to sell a certain way or speak to clients a certain way, and think a certain way of how you approach clients and bids and the team, and the kind of different managerial styles that I will never be. Um, there was a lot of that, in my kind of early career, I guess, before I joined the company that I'm in now.
Mm.
And it's hard not listening to that when you're doing this, right? Because that's all you see. So yeah, I think for me was taking the plunge to do something completely different that I fully know I could have failed at. But then again, when you do that, you get empowered, because then if you do succeed and you are yourself and you succeed, then yeah, you've come through the other side, right? And you set yourself that you could do it without anyone telling you so, I guess.
Is there a book or a quote or a piece of wisdom that has influenced the way that you approach life and work?
There's a book by Jim Collins that is called Good to Great. I don't know if you've read it. Great book. And for me, it's been it's one of those things that, one of those books I've read, and I every now and again I think about it, because I think again, day to day we put decisions in front of us, and you make a call on it, and I think it's very easy to be good because of the time that you have, because of the resources that you have, and I think it's difficult to be great. And I think catching yourself in that and saying, okay, how can I be great? And yes, it will be harder, has really, I think, helped me at different times. Just remembering that anyone can be good, but being great is the harder thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to go back to when you moved to the UK and that big pay cut you took from the US job to the first UK job, and how you what your thought process was behind that. I understand the holiday, big thing for me.
So stupid.
but taking a massive pay cut like that, how did you come to terms with that, and what was the thinking behind it?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really stupid when you say it, doesn't it? I think at the time I felt like I couldn't have had the same salary that I had in the US. So that was the first thing, I realized that that was going to be a compromise. And then I really believed that I could work from that. Because I think if you had said to me, Di, you're gonna, be on 30 grand for a while, then I definitely not. But I could see the kind of progression that, design and build had. And, I say this to my sisters too, and I think it's a great industry to be in because you obviously make good money, you get exposed to lots of amazing people, amazing companies, and there's, again, really good pay. So yeah, I guess it was like the premise of it being a really good career that helped me make the decision, even though it was really crap for
But
a couple of years.
the decision was made on lifestyle rather than the immediate financial gain.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought, one of the first things was I will absolutely not work for a whole year and have 10 days. Or actually, my contract on that 70-ish K job was a 5-day holiday with 5 days sick pay, which sounds horrible. So that was a no. And that was absolutely not a thing that I was gonna sign up for. And then yeah, the second thing was again the kind of the career progression that I knew that I wasn't gonna be on that salary
Yeah.
for that long.
So would you advise people then take a role not based on what it is today, but what it could be in the future, and
For sure.
something that you love and enjoy and are good at?
For sure. I think you need to have passion, right? And it doesn't have to be, again, as I said before, I would have loved to be a singer, I think, at another life, but there's other passions. You don't have to have one passion, right? And construction's always been one of my passions. So I'm totally okay with, the choice that I made. And then it's yeah, having passion and then seeing, 5-10 years into the future, what could this passion bring you? And I think that's, what I had in my mind when I took it, even though obviously living in London with 28K was pretty intense.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got a very young daughter. What advice would you give her about her career, do you think, at the moment?
I think I will encourage her to be whatever she wants to be, which is something that actually I was never encouraged to be. Ironically, I didn't feel when I was growing up that I maybe could have been a singer or could have been a football player or whatever, because my parents are always very focused on us not having the same kind of lifestyle that my mom had, right? Which, yes, is quite prehistoric. I want her to feel supported in whatever she wants to do, and yeah, I hope that she feels just empowered to follow her passion. Obviously, I want her to have a great career, but I think you can. I fully believe that if you have a passion for something and you follow through with it, you will have a good career no matter what.
So, Di, we're going to end with some shaping moments questions.
Okay.
Okay. What's one tool, resource, or item you must have in your workspace that allows you to do your best work?
My colored pens,
Highlighters or felt tips?
just anything. I like colors. Sounds bizarre, but yeah, it makes me thrive.
Love it. Looking back, is there a place, a room, a building, or a city where you found your voice or realised your potential as a leader, even if you didn't recognise it at the time?
London, yeah, for sure.
So I've got a 7-year-old at home, and his job title, if he gave himself one at the moment, changes probably every 2 days. If your 7-year-old self had a job title, what would it have been, and how does it connect to the woman you are today?
I think again, I feel like I've been talking about being a singer so much, which I'm not. I think I would have wanted to be a singer.
Yeah,
So yeah, I would have been, pop star of Brazil.
pop star of Brazil.
Something like
Love
that.
it. You're probably going to have to give us a tune. We are at Abbey Road.
I
So.
know. I'm picking myself up to this thing, which I, not. But yeah, I think that's what I would have done when I was 7.
Brilliant. Di, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was lovely.
Okay, let's take it from the top.